Queen Zephyr stood on the balcony of her palace looking out at the purple sky of her home world. The twin moons were rising, casting a soft glow over the crystal towers of her capital city. She was beautiful, even by Valdorian standards, with pale blue skin that shimmered like starlight and silver, hair that moved like water in the gentle breeze. Her large violet eyes could see into people's minds, a gift all her people shared. But tonight those eyes were troubled. The human ships had arrived 3 months ago, and everything was changing. Her advisors were worried, her people were curious, and she was confused about feelings she had never experienced before. The humans wanted to build a trade station in Valdorian space. They offered technology and resources that her people needed. The Valdorans were smart and could build amazing things, but they were not strong fighters. They had always survived by being peaceful and making friends, not enemies. Zephyr heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see her chief advisor, an old Valdorian named Kalen, approaching with a worried expression. "Your Majesty," Kalen said, bowing his head, "the human engineer is here for the evening meeting about the terraforming project." She nodded. "Sent him in." Jake Martinez walked onto the balcony carrying a data pad and wearing his usual simple clothes. He was not tall or impressive like the human soldiers she had met. His brown hair was always a little messy, and his dark eyes were kind and patient. He never tried to read her mind like other humans attempted with Valdorans. He just talked to her like a normal person. "Good evening, Your Majesty," Jake said with a small bow. He had learned Valdorian customs, but he was still awkward with the formal stuff. "Please just call me Zephyra when we are alone," she said. "You have been working here for 3 months. We do not need to be so formal." Jake smiled, and she felt something warm in her chest. That smile was becoming dangerous to her peace of mind. "The terraforming project is going well," Jake said, showing her the data pad. "We can start the atmospheric processors next week. Your people are amazing to work with. They understand the technology faster than most humans do." Zephyr looked at the information, but she was more interested in watching Jake talk. He got excited about his work in a way that made her happy. Most people talked to her because she was a queen. Jake talked to her because he wanted to share something he cared about. "You seem tired," she said, noticing the lines around his eyes. Jake rubbed his neck. "I have been working extra hours. I want to make sure everything is perfect. This project means a lot to both our peoples. You care very much about doing good work," Zephyr observed. "I care about not letting people down," Jake said quietly, "especially people who are important to me." Something in his voice made her look at him more carefully. There was meaning in his words that went beyond the terraforming project. Over the next few weeks, their evening meetings became longer. They talked about the project, but they also talked about their worlds, their families, and their dreams. Jake told her about Earth with its blue skies and vast oceans. Zephyra shared stories of Valdorian history and culture. Jake was different from what she had expected humans to be. Her advisors had warned her that humans were violent and dangerous, but Jake was gentle and thoughtful. He listened when she talked and remembered small details about things she cared about. He brought her earth flowers that he grew in his quarters, even though they did not grow well under the alien sun. "Why did you come so far from Earth? Zephyr asked one evening as they walked through her private gardens. Jake was quiet for a moment. I wanted to see new things and meet new people. Earth can be intense sometimes. I like it better here. It is peaceful. Do you miss your home? Not as much as I thought I would, Jake said, looking at her. I am starting to think home might be more about people than places. Zephyr felt her heart beat faster. She was a queen who had never been interested in marriage or romance. Her duty was to her people, and she had always been content with that. But Jake was making her want things she had never wanted before. The problem started when her advisors noticed how much time she spent with the human engineer. Kalen was the first to speak to her about it. Your Majesty, people are talking, he said during a council meeting. Some wonder if your friendship with the human is appropriate. Jake Martinez is helping our world become stronger. Zephyr replied, his work is important. His work, yes, said another advisor. But you spend personal time with him. You walk in the gardens together. People see this. Zephyr felt anger rise in her chest. I will choose my own friends. Of course, Your Majesty, Kalen said carefully, but remember that humans are very different from us. They are aggressive and unpredictable. This Jake Martinez seems peaceful, but we do not know what he is really like. That night, Zephyra could not sleep. She went to her balcony and found Jake sitting on the steps looking up at the stars. Could not sleep either, she asked, sitting beside him. Too much thinking, Jake said. Your advisors do not like me very much. They are worried about change. All change frightens them. Jake nodded. Change can be scary, but sometimes it is necessary. What kind of change? Zephyra asked, though she thought she knew what he meant. Jake turned to look at her. In the moonlight, his eyes were serious and honest, the kind where a human engineer falls in love with an alien queen and does not know what to do about it. Zephyr felt like the air had been pulled from her lungs. She had hoped, but hearing the words made it real and terrifying and wonderful all at once. That would be a very big change, she whispered. Yes, it would, Jake agreed. It would probably cause a lot of problems. Probably, Zephyr said. Then she smiled, but it might also be worth it. Jake reached for her hand, and she let him take it. His skin was warm and rough from work, so different from Valdorian hands, but it felt right. What do we do now? Jake asked. Zephyr looked out at her city, thinking of her people and her duties and all the reasons why this was impossible. Then she looked at Jake and thought of all the reasons why it might be the best decision she had ever made. Now we figure out how to make something impossible become possible, she said. 6 months later, Queen Zephyr and Jake Martinez were married in a ceremony that shocked both species. The wedding was beautiful but tense. Half the Valdorian court thought their queen had made a terrible mistake. The human colonies were confused about why one of their engineers had married an alien ruler. But Jake and Zephyr did not care what others thought. They were happy together. Jake moved into the royal palace but kept working on his terraforming projects. He was quiet and polite with the Valdorian nobles, who slowly began to accept him. Some even started to like him. He was not what they had expected from a human. He was gentle, smart, and clearly loved their queen very much. General Thorne, the head of Dorian Defense Forces, was one of the few who appreciated Jake from the beginning. He has good ideas about protecting our trade routes, Thorn told the Queen. He thinks about problems differently than we do. Differently how? Zephyr asked. He sees weak points we miss, and he knows how other species think about warfare. Most Vorans have never studied military strategy from other worlds. Zephyr was glad that someone in her government valued Jake's mind. Her husband was always reading reports about galactic politics and military movements. He said it helped him understand the bigger picture of where humanity and Valdora fit in the galaxy, but Jake never talked about fighting or violence. When the Council discussed defense plans, he suggested better communication systems and early warning networks. He talked about avoiding conflicts, not winning them. This made the Valdorian nobles feel comfortable around him. He seemed like a peaceful human who would never hurt anyone. The good times ended on a cold morning when long-range sensors detected a massive fleet entering Valdorian space. The ships were huge, black, and moved in perfect formation. Everyone in the palace knew what this meant. The Crayon Dominion had come. Commander Lyra burst into the throne room where Zephyr was having breakfast with Jake. Your Majesty, we have a situation. Crayon warships have crossed our border. Jake put down his cup. Slowly, Zephyr saw something change in his eyes for just a moment, but it was gone so fast she thought she imagined it. How many ships? Zephyr asked, though she dreaded the answer. 50 capital ships, Your Majesty. Maybe more. They are requesting permission to send an ambassador. Jake spoke quietly. They do not need 50 ships to send an ambassador. General Thorn arrived a few minutes later with more bad news. The fleet is positioning itself around our outer colonies. They have not attacked, but they are clearly showing their strength. What do the Crayons want with us? Saphira asked. We have never had any contact with them. They want what they always want, Thorn said grimly. New territory to control. The Krillin ambassador arrived 2 days later. Ambassador Vexar was a terrifying sight. He stood nearly 3 m tall with gray skin, like stone, and forearms ending in clawed hands. His face had no expression except cold pride. He wore black armor covered with symbols of his victories over other worlds. The throne room was packed with Valdorian nobles and military officers. Jake stood beside Zephyr's throne, wearing his best formal clothes. He looked small and ordinary next to the massive alien warrior, Queen Zephyra of the Valdorian Empire. Vexar said in a voice like grinding metal, I bring greetings from the Crayon Dominion and our Supreme Commander. You are welcome here. Ambassador, Zephyra replied, keeping her voice steady. What brings the Krillin Dominion to our space? Vexar's eyes moved around the room, studying the Valdorans like a predator choosing prey. The Dominion has decided that this region of space would be better managed under our protection. Your worlds have valuable resources that are being wasted. Our worlds are well managed by our own people, Zephyra said firmly. Your people are weak, Vexar replied. Without emotion, you have no real military. Your technology is advanced, but you cannot protect yourselves. Galaxy is becoming more dangerous. You need stronger protection. Jake stepped forward slightly. Ambassador Vexar, perhaps we can discuss ways for our peoples to work together without changing our government systems. Vexar looked down at Jake like he was noticing an insect. And you are Jake Martinez. I'm the Queen's husband and a representative of human interest in this system. The Kralin ambassador made a sound that might have been laughter. The pet human speaks. How amusing. Do you think your weak species has any influence here, little creature? Jake's face did not change expression, but Zephyr felt tension in the air. I think all species deserve respect and the right to choose their own path. Respect is earned through strength, Var said. Your kind are known for making noise about fighting, but you avoid real conflict. You are as weak as these blue-kin pacifists. Several Valdorian nobles looked angry at the insult, but they were too afraid to speak. General Thorne's hand moved toward his weapon, but Zephyr gave him a small signal to stay calm. What exactly does the Dominion want from us? Zephyr asked. Simple terms, Vexar replied. Surrender your government to Dominion. Control, your people will become citizens of our empire. Your technology and resources will serve the greater good of the Dominion. In return, we will protect you from other threats and end. If we refuse, Vexar's forearms spread wide, then you will learn what happens to worlds that refuse Dominion protection. I have recordings of our recent diplomatic missions to other systems. Would you like to see them? The ambassador activated a holographic projector. Images filled the air above the throne room. They showed cities burning, ships exploding, and worlds reduced to smoking ruins. The Valdorian nobles gasped in horror. The Centauri Federation chose to refuse our offer. Vexar explained calmly. They had a strong military and thought they could resist us. This is what remains of their capital world. Jake was staring at the images with an expression Zephyr had never seen before. His face was completely calm, but his hands were clenched into fists. How long do we have to consider your offer? Zephyr asked, though she already knew the answer would not be good. 7 of your days, Vexar said. I will return for your decision. I suggest you choose wisely. The Dominion does not make this offer twice. The Krillin ambassador turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at Jake. Human, you should consider leaving this system before our deadline. Your species has no stake in what happens here. Save yourself the trouble of dying for aliens who cannot save themselves. Jake met the ambassador's eyes without fear. I appreciate the advice, but I will stay with my wife. Your loyalty to this doomed queen is touching but foolish, Vexar said. But perhaps that is simply the nature of weak species. You cling to hopeless causes. After the Crayon delegation left, the throne room erupted in worried voices. Some nobles wanted to surrender immediately. Others talked about fighting even though everyone knew they could not win. General Thorne was already making plans to evacuate the royal family to safer worlds. Through all the chaos, Jake stood quietly beside Zephyra's throne. She looked at her husband and saw something in his eyes that she had never noticed before. It was not fear or confusion like everyone else showed. It was something else entirely, something that made her think of deep, still water, hiding dangerous currents underneath. What are you thinking about? She asked him quietly while her advisors argued. Jake was silent for a long moment. I am thinking about options, he said finally. There are always more options than people realize. What kind of options? Jake looked at her with those dark, patient eyes that had first made her fall in love with him, the kind that require careful planning, he said, and The kind that nobody expects from a quiet engineer who just wants to grow flowers and terraform worlds. For the first time since the crayons arrived, Zephyr felt a small spark of hope. She did not understand why, but something in Jake's voice told her that this story was not over yet. The first day after Ambassador Vexar left was filled with panic. Emergency meetings ran all day and into the night. General Thorne presented military reports that made everyone feel hopeless. Valdorian Defense Fleet had 37 ships. They were fast and had good shields, but they carried no heavy weapons. Against 50 Krillin warships, they would last maybe 10 minutes. We could evacuate the core worlds, Commander Lyra suggested. Move the population to the outer colonies and hope the crayons are not interested in empty planets. They want our technology and our resources. General Thorne replied, empty planets will not satisfy them. They will hunt down our people wherever they go. Jake sat quietly in the corner of the meeting room, listening to every word. When someone asked his opinion, he talked about evacuation routes and communication systems. He never mentioned fighting back. Some of the nobles began to whisper that the human was a coward who would not help defend his new home, but Zephyr watched her husband carefully. Jake was not afraid. He was thinking. She could see it in the way he studied the tactical displays and asked specific questions about crayon ship movements. He was gathering information about something, but she did not know what. On the second day, reports came in from the border colonies. Crayon scout ships were making practice runs over civilian areas. They flew low over cities and farms, showing their weapons but not firing. The message was clear: this is what will happen to you if you refuse our offer. The colonists were terrified. Some tried to flee to the inner worlds, but there were not enough transport ships for everyone. Families were separated. Children cried for parents they might never see again. The Valdorian government tried to stay calm, but everyone could see the fear in their eyes. Jake spent most of that day working with the evacuation coordinators. He helped design better loading schedules for the transport ships and suggested safer routes to avoid crayon patrols, but he also asked strange questions about ship manifest and passenger lists. When Zephyr asked why he needed those details, Jake said he wanted to make sure important people were moved to safety first. On the third day, news arrived that made everyone's blood turn cold. The crayons had destroyed a small research station on the edge of Valdorian space. They claimed it was an accident during a training exercise, but everyone knew it was a demonstration. 50 scientists and their families were dead. They are showing us what happens to those who resist, General Thorne said grimly. This is how they operate. First they give warnings, then they destroy something small to prove their power. Finally, they destroy everything. That night, Zephyr found Jake on their private balcony looking up at the stars. He was holding a small device she had never seen before. What is that? She asked. Communication unit, Jake said quietly. I have been talking to some people. What people? Jake hesitated. Other humans. People who might be able to help. Zephyr felt a surge of hope. Are human ships coming to help us? It is complicated. Jake said the human government cannot officially get involved in a war between the Krallons and the Valdorans, but there are other ways to help. What kind of ways? Jake looked at her with those dark eyes that always seemed to see more than they revealed, the kind that work better if most people do not know about them. Until they happen, on the fourth day, Captain Marcus Cole arrived in the system aboard a human merchant ship. Called the New Dawn, he requested a meeting with the Valdorian government, claiming he had an offer to evacuate human citizens before the Krallon deadline. Captain Cole was a big man, with gray hair and scars on his hands. He wore a simple merchant's uniform, but he moved like a soldier. When he met with the Royal Council, he spoke directly to Jake. Mr. Martinez, I have orders to evacuate all human civilians from this system. Cole said, my ship can carry 200 people. We leave in 2 days. Thank you, Captain, Jake replied, but I will not be leaving, sir. With respect, Earth Command has classified this system as a lost cause. The Crayons have too much firepower. There is nothing anyone can do to help these people. Several Valdorian nobles looked hurt by the captain's blunt words. Zephyr felt her heart sink. If even the humans thought the situation was hopeless, what chance did they have? I understand Earth Command's position, Jake said calmly, but my place is here with my wife and her people. Captain Cole studied Jake. For a long moment, something passed between them that Zephyr did not understand. Are you sure about that? Sir, once we leave, there will be no more chances, I am sure, Jake said firmly. After Captain Cole left, the mood in the palace became even darker. If the humans would not help and the Valdorans could not fight, surrender seemed like the only option. Some nobles began arguing that they should accept Cran rule before more people died. On the 5th day, Ambassador Vexar returned for what he called a progress report. He brought more holographic recordings, these ones showing recent Cran victories over other species, entire fleets burning in space, planets stripped of their atmospheres, populations enslaved or destroyed. The Helix Alliance thought they could resist us, Vexar explained, showing images of a beautiful world now covered in ash. They had better technology than you do. It did not matter. Strength always defeats cleverness in the end. Jake watched the recordings without expression, but Zephyr noticed that his breathing had changed. It was slower and more controlled, like he was forcing himself to stay calm. 2 more days, Vexar announced. I hope you will make the wise choice. Your people seem pleasant enough. It would be unfortunate if they had to die because their queen was too proud to accept reality. The ambassador turned his attention to Jake. Human, I'm surprised you are still here. Do you really plan to die for aliens you barely know? I know them well enough, Jake replied quietly, and they are not aliens to me. They are family. Vexar made that grinding sound that passed for crayon laughter. Family, how touching. You humans always think emotions matter more than power. That is why you will never be a truly strong species. Perhaps, Jake said, but we define strength differently than you do. Strength is simple, Beakster replied. It is the ability to take what you want and destroy anyone who tries to stop you. Everything else is weakness disguised with pretty words. Jake nodded slowly. I see. Thank you for explaining your philosophy so clearly, Ambassador. It helps me understand the situation better. Something in Jake's tone made Zephyr look at him sharply. There was a new quality in his voice, something cold and focused that she had never heard before. But when she tried to catch his eye, Jake was looking at the tactical displays on the wall. That night Zephyra could not sleep. The weight of choosing between surrender and death was crushing her. She found Jake in his small office, reading reports and making notes on a data pad. "What are you working on?" she asked. "Evacuation plans," Jake said. "If we have to surrender, I want to make sure your people are treated as well as possible." Zephyr sat down beside him and put her head on his shoulder. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I am sorry I brought you into this. You could have stayed on Earth and lived a peaceful life. Instead, you married me, and now you might die because of my choices." Jake put his arms around her and held her close. "Do not apologize for loving me, and do not apologize for being brave enough to try to save your people. Those are not things to be sorry about, but we are going to lose. Everyone knows it. Even your own people say there is no hope." Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but there was something underneath it that made Zephyr think of steel wrapped in silk. "There is always hope," he said. "Sometimes it just comes from directions that nobody expects." "What do you mean?" Jake kissed the top of her head gently. "I mean that tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day. An ambassador Vexistar is going to learn something important about humans that he does not expect." Zephyr pulled back to look at her husband's face. In the dim light of his office, Jake's eyes held something she had never seen before. It was not fear or sadness or resignation. It was something quiet and dangerous and absolutely certain. For the first time in days, Zephyra felt like maybe, just maybe, this story was not going to end the way everyone thought it would. The sixth day dawned gray and cold. Queen Zephyra sat on her throne in the great hall, surrounded by her advisors and nobles. Everyone knew this was the last day before Ambassador Vexistar returned for their final answer. The mood in the room was heavy with defeat. General Thorne had spent the night preparing surrender documents. Commander Lyra had evacuation plans ready for the royal family, though they all knew the crayons would probably not let them leave. The nobles whispered among themselves, some crying quietly for the end of their civilization. Jake stood beside Zephyra's throne, wearing his formal black jacket. He looked calm, almost peaceful, which confused everyone. How could he be so relaxed when they were all about to lose everything? "Your Majesty," General Thorne said heavily, "we should discuss the terms of surrender. If we are going to do this, we need to try to protect as many people as possible." Zephyr nodded. "Sadly, what do you recommend?" "We offer them full cooperation in exchange for treating our people well. We give them access to all our technology and resources, but we ask them to let our culture survive. They will agree to that for maybe a year," Commander Lyra said bitterly. "Then they will decide our culture is inconvenient and erase it completely." The great doors of the throne room opened with a crash. Ambassador Vexar strode in, followed by 6 Kralin warriors in full battle armor. Each warrior was nearly as tall as Vexar himself, carrying weapons that could destroy a building. They moved with perfect military precision, their armor making metallic sounds with each step. "Queen Zephyr," Bexar announced, his voice echoing through the hall, "the time for discussion has ended. I require your final answer." Zephyr stood slowly, feeling the weight of her crown and the eyes of her people on her. "Ambassador Vexar, we wait," Jake said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "Jake,"
stepped forward, his hands at his sides, looking small and ordinary compared to the massive Crayon warriors. I have a question for the ambassador, Jake said. Beaksiter looked down at Jake with amusement. The pet human wishes to speak. How entertaining. Ask your question, little creature. Jake's voice was calm and steady. Are you formally declaring war on species under human protection? The question confused everyone. Fexter tilted his head, not understanding why this mattered. Human protection. Vexar laughed. You're pathetic. Species protects no one. You avoid conflict and hide behind treaties. These Valdorans have no alliance with humanity. That was not what I asked. Jake said patiently. I asked if you are declaring war on species under human protection. It is a simple yes or no question. Yes, Vexar said, spreading his forearms wide. I declare war on any species that stands in the way of Kralin expansion, including your weak humans. If they dare to interfere, something changed in the air of the throne room. It was subtle, like the moment before lightning strikes when all the hair on your arm stands up. Several Valdorans looked around nervously, not understanding what they were feeling. Jake nodded slowly. Thank you for that clarification, Ambassador. That makes things much simpler. Simpler how? Vexar demanded. Jake reached up and began removing his formal jacket. Simpler because now I do not have to find a diplomatic solution. As Jake pulled off his jacket, gasps echoed through the throne room. His arms were covered with scars. Not the small scars of accidents or normal life, but the deliberate scars of battles fought in. One, there were burn marks from energy weapons, thin lines from blades, and twisted patches where shrapnel had torn his flesh. But more than the scars, Jake's entire body language had changed. The gentle engineer was gone. In his place stood something that made the air itself feel dangerous. You see, Ambassador, Jake said, his voice now carrying an edge like a blade. I came to Valdorian space looking for peace. I found a beautiful world, amazing people, and a woman I love more than my own life. I became an engineer because I was tired of solving problems with violence. Jake began walking toward the Crayon warriors, and they instinctively stepped back. Even Ambassador Vexar looked uncertain for the first time. But you have rejected every peaceful option, Jake continued. You have threatened my wife, my people, and my home. You have made it clear that you only understand one language, one of the Kralin warriors raised his weapon, pointing it at Jake. Jake moved faster than anyone thought possible. His hand struck the warrior's wrist. The weapon fell to the floor, and the warrior was on his knees, clutching a broken arm. It happened so quickly that most people did not see how he did it. I am not just an engineer, Jake said, his voice now completely different from the gentle man they all knew. I am Jake Martinez, former Sergeant First Class, Human Special Forces, 3rd Assault Division. I served in the Centauri Pacification Wars, the Rim conflicts, and 6 classified operations that your intelligence networks never discovered. The remaining 5 Krillin warriors attacked together. What followed was not a fight so much as a demonstration of human combat capability that defied everything the aliens thought they knew about Jake's species. Jake moved like water flowing around obstacles, always in the right place at the right time. He used the warriors' size and strength against them, redirecting their attacks and striking at weak points in their armor. When one Warrior tried to grab him. Jake spun away and struck pressure points that dropped the alien like a stone. When another swung a massive fist, Jake ducked under it and hit the warrior's knee in a way that made the joint bend in the wrong direction. The Valdorans watched in stunned silence as their quiet, gentle Jake dismantled 6 elite Kralin warriors without breaking a sweat. He moved with deadly precision, every motion planned and controlled. There was no wasted effort, no unnecessary violence. He disabled each warrior just enough to remove them from the fight, then moved to the next one. In less than 2 minutes, all 6 Kralin warriors were on the floor, either unconscious or unable to move. Jake stood in the center of the throne room, not even breathing hard, looking at Ambassador Vexar. Now, Jake said pleasantly, as if he had just served tea, instead of defeating 6 armed warriors, let us discuss the situation like civilized beings. Ambassador Vexar stared at Jake in shock. The massive Kralin had seen many battles, but he had never seen anything like what had just happened. These were his best warriors, and this small human had beaten them all without even using a weapon. Impossible, Beekster whispered. You are just an engineer, a peaceful terraformer. How did you? I am what my people call a sleeping giant, Jake explained calmly. We prefer peace, but we are very, very good at war when we need to be. Problem is that most species make the same mistake you just made. What mistake? Jake smiled, and for the first time his smile was not gentle and kind. It was the smile of a predator who had just cornered his prey. You assumed that because I chose peace, I was incapable of violence, Jake said. You thought that because I was quiet and polite, I was weak. But the most dangerous humans are often the ones who have seen enough war to know that peace is worth fighting for. Jake pulled out his communication device and activated it. Captain Cole, this is Jake Martinez. Authorization code Sierra 77 Alpha. Please confirm receipt of tactical data and standby for Phase 2. A voice crackled from the device. Confirmed, Sergeant. Data received. USS New Dawn is dropping stealth mode and broadcasting human protection protocols. Earth Command. Reinforcements are en route. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Ambassador Vexator's face went pale. You are military. This was a trap, not a trap, Jake corrected. An opportunity, you see. Ambassador, the Valdorian Empire signed a mutual protection agreement with humanity exactly 4 hours ago. Queen Zephyra and I signed the documents this morning while you were positioning your ships for attack. Zephyra stared at her husband in amazement. Jake, what? Paperwork will be transmitted to the Crayon Dominion within the hour, Jake continued, ignoring the chaos around him. Any attack on Valdorian space will now be considered an act of war against humanity, and unlike the Valdorans, Ambassador, we humans are very good at war. Ambassador Vexar looked around the throne room at his defeated warriors, then back at Jake. This changes nothing. The Dominion has 50 ships in this system. Your merchant vessel cannot. The New Dawn is not a merchant vessel, Jake said with that same predatory smile. It is a Wolverine-class stealth destroyer, carrying enough firepower to level continent, and it is not alone. As if summoned by his words, alarms began ringing throughout the palace. Through the great windows, everyone could see ships appearing in the sky above the capital city, sleek, deadly human Warships that had been hiding in stealth mode waiting for Jake's signal. Queen Zapira could only stare at her husband in shock. The gentle man she had married, the quiet engineer who grew flowers and built terraforming equipment, had just revealed himself to be something entirely different, and she realized that she was seeing for the first time what humans were really capable of when they chose to fight, instead of hiding their strength behind peaceful smiles. The throne room was completely silent, except for the groans of wounded Krillin warriors and the distant sound of alarms. Ambassador Vexar stood frozen, staring at Jake as if seeing him for the first time. Queen Zephyr gripped the arms of her throne, trying to understand what had just happened. Jake activated his communication device again. Captain Cole, please patch me through to the Crayon Fleet Commander. Already connected, Sergeant, came the reply. The Crayon Admiral is standing by. Holographic display activated in the center of the throne room. The image showed a massive Krillin in elaborate armor standing on the bridge of a warship. His face was furious. I am Admiral Korath, Supreme Commander of the 7th Krillin Battle Fleet. The image growled. Explain why human ships are targeting my vessels. Jake stepped forward, no longer the quiet engineer, but clearly a military professional. Admiral Korath, I am Sergeant Jake Martinez, representing human interests in this system. Your ambassador just declared war on a species under human protection. You have 30 minutes to withdraw your fleet from Voron space. Impossible, Admiral Korath snarled. These Valdorans have no alliance with humanity. We checked all the records. Check again, Jake said calmly. Mutual protection agreement was signed this morning. It has been filed with the Galactic Registry and transmitted to your government. Any attack on Voron territory will be considered an attack on human colonies. On the holographic display, Admiral Korath turned to speak with someone off-screen. After a tense moment, he looked back with an expression of shocked disbelief. The agreement is confirmed, he said reluctantly, but this changes nothing. The Dominion does not retreat from weaker species, Admiral Jake said, his voice becoming dangerously quiet. I suggest you reconsider that position. The human ships currently surrounding your fleet are not a rescue mission. They are a demonstration. We are offering you one chance to leave peacefully. Your ships are outnumbered 3-1, Admiral Korath replied. Even human technology cannot overcome those odds. Jake smiled that cold, predatory smile again. Admiral, would you like to test that theory? I can arrange a demonstration of human military capability, but I should warn you that the last species to test our resolve no longer exists. The statement hung in the air like a death sentence. Admiral Korath's expression changed as he realized Jake was not bluffing. 30 minutes, Jake repeated. After that we stop being diplomatic. Holographic display shut off. Ambassador Vexar looked around the throne room like a trapped animal. This is not over, he said to Jake. The Dominion will not forget this insult. Ambassador Jake replied calmly. Let me give you some free advice. When you report back to your superiors, tell them exactly what happened here today. Tell them that humans prefer peace, but we are extremely good at war. Tell them that we protect our friends and our families with everything we have, and tell them that the next time they threaten people we care about, we will not offer them 30 minutes to reconsider. Bixar gathered his wounded warriors and left the throne room without another word. The massive doors closed behind them with a final echoing boom. For a long moment, nobody moved or spoke. The Valdorian nobles stared at Jake like they had never seen him before. General Thorn was studying the tactical displays, trying to understand how human ships had appeared in their system without being detected. Commander Lyra was checking reports from their defense fleet, confirming that the humans had indeed surrounded the Krillin armada. Queen Zapira slowly stood up from her throne. Her violet eyes were fixed on her husband, filled with questions and emotions she could not name. Jake, she said quietly, I think we need to talk. Jake nodded. Yes, we do. They walked together to their private chambers, leaving the shocked nobles behind. Once they were alone, Zapira turned to face the man she thought she knew. Who are you? She asked. I mean, really, who are you? Jake sat down heavily on their bed, suddenly looking tired. The dangerous warrior was gone, replaced by someone who looked sad and older than his years. I am Jake Martinez, he said quietly. Everything I told you about myself was true. I am an engineer. I did come here to work on terraforming projects. I do love growing flowers and building things instead of destroying them. But you are also a soldier. I was a soldier, Jake corrected. For 15 years I fought in wars across the galaxy. I was good at it, maybe too good. I won battles that other people said were impossible to win. I kept my team alive when everyone expected them to die, and I killed a lot of people who probably deserved to die. Zephyr sat down beside him. Why did you never tell me? Jake looked at his hands, studying the scars that told stories of violence she had never imagined. Because I wanted to leave that part of my life behind. When I came to Valdorian space, I thought I could be just an engineer, just a man who built things and grew flowers and maybe found someone to love. But you kept your military connections. I kept my security clearance and my communication codes. Jake admitted. You cannot completely leave the military when you know the things I know, and I always worried that someday, somewhere, you might need protection that I could not provide as just an engineer. Zephyr was quiet for a long time, thinking about everything she had seen and learned. The mutual protection agreement. When did you really arrange that? 3 days ago, Jake said, when I realized the Krallins were not going to accept any peaceful solution. I contacted Earth Command and explained the situation. They agreed to provide protection in exchange for technology sharing and basing rights. You planned all of this. I planned for the possibility, Jake said. I hoped it would not be necessary. I wanted to find a diplomatic solution that would save your people without anyone getting hurt. But the crayons made it clear that they only respect strength. Zephyr reached over and took his scarred hands in her smooth blue ones. I watched you fight those warriors. You could have killed them all easily, could you not? Jake nodded. Yes, but killing them would not have served any purpose except to prove a point. They were just following orders. Ambassador Vexar was the one who needed to learn a lesson. What lesson? That humans are not weak just because we prefer peace. That choosing diplomacy does not mean we cannot fight, and that threatening the people we love is the fastest way to see exactly how dangerous we can be. Zephyra studied his face, seeing new lines and depths that she had
Never noticed before. Are you still the same man I married? Jake smiled, and this time it was the gentle, kind smile she remembered falling in love with. I am exactly the same man you married. I just have more tools available when I need to protect the people I care about. A soft chime from Jake's communication device interrupted them. He activated it, and Captain Cole's voice filled the room. Sergeant, the Crayon Fleet is withdrawing from Beldorian space. Admiral Korath has requested permission to transport his ambassador and wounded warriors to their ships. Permission granted, Jake replied, and Captain, please transmit the full tactical report to Earth Command. They will want to know how well the new stealth systems worked. Already done. Sir, the fleet commander sends his compliments on a textbook demonstration of overwhelming force diplomacy. After Jake closed the communication link, Zephyr asked, what happens now? Your people are safe, Jake said. The Cran Dominion will not risk war with humanity over one small empire. They will find easier targets somewhere else. In us, what happens to us? Jake took her hands and looked into her violet eyes with the same love and gentleness she had always seen there. That depends on you. Can you accept being married to someone who has killed people? Someone who will kill again if your safety requires it. Zephyr thought about the gentleman who grew flowers in their garden, who listened to her problems with infinite patience, who made her laugh and held her when she was sad. Then she thought about the warrior who had appeared when his family was threatened, who had planned and executed a strategy that saved her entire civilization. You did not marry a warrior, Jake said quietly, echoing her thoughts. You married someone who became a warrior to protect what he loves. There is a difference. What difference? A warrior fights because that is what he is. I fight because I have something worth fighting for. Zephyr leaned forward and kissed him softly. Then I can accept it because I understand now that your strength is not separate from your gentleness. They are both part of who you are. Over the following weeks, the galaxy learned an important lesson about humanity. The species that preferred peace and diplomacy was also capable of projecting military power with terrifying efficiency. The Krillin Dominion quietly updated their intelligence files on human capabilities and decided to look for expansion opportunities in different directions. The Valdorian Empire became humanity's first official alien ally, beginning a partnership that would change both civilizations. Queen Zapira ruled with the quiet confidence of someone who knew her people were protected, and Jake Martinez returned to his engineering work, growing flowers in the palace gardens and designing new terraforming projects. But sometimes, late at night, Zephyr would trace the scars on his arms and think about the hidden depths that existed in the man she loved. She had learned that humans were capable of both incredible gentleness